Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie and today I am doing my July wrap up. Can you believe it? I'm finally getting caught up. Okay, so for the month of July, I read 10 books and I had a pretty good reading month. In fact, I had a really good reading month. I read 3 3-star books, 6 4-star books, and 1 5-star book. So I didn't read a ton of amazing, fantastic, perfect books, but I read a lot of really, really great books. So let's go ahead and get started. The first book that I'm going to jump in and talk about is a first 4-star book, and that is going to be See Me After Class by Megan Quinn. This is actually my first Megan Quinn book, and it took me a minute to get into this book. It really did. So if you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory, I really think you're going to enjoy this one. It is about a group of just super nerdy teachers. So the two main characters in this one is about Greer and Arlo, but it really follows a whole group of teachers at one school. But Greer and Arlo are the two main characters in this specific book. And Greer is the new teacher. She's brand new to teaching. She just finished college. This is her first job. And Arlo is very grumpy. He is very rich. He's like the department head of all of the English teachers, and she's the new English teacher coming in. He did not want her to come on board, and he is attracted to her, but he also doesn't agree with her teaching methods, and he's made that very clear from the very get-go. So she kind of pranks him and eventually gets him to really like her, but he still doesn't agree with her methods and her teaching, and he voices his disagreement with her constantly, and she has this crush on him. She's trying super hard to get him to open up and be friends with her, and after a while it starts to work, and they become friends, and then they become more, and they go on dates, and they become super serious. There is a pretty sad situation that kind of happens at the end of this book that kind of broke my heart, but I really, really, really loved this story so much. If you are into The Big Bang Theory, if you are into this super nerdy, quirky group of teachers kind of situation, you're going to love this story. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and I would definitely recommend, and I cannot wait to read another book in the series. The next book that I have to talk about is Savaged by Mia Sheridan. This is actually my first Mia Sheridan book, and I don't know how I feel about this one. I gave it 3 stars. It's a little unrealistic in what happened, and this book is not very romance heavy. It's very plot heavy, and it's horror. This is more of a thriller horror book than it is a romance. There's a very, very small plot line that is romance, but it's more of a subplot. It's not really the main storyline isn't really a romance. That's just kind of the side thing, and this book is just very, very heartbreaking. I doubt I will reread this story again. You have to really suspend your belief in reality to truly believe half of what happened in this story. It's kind of like my worst nightmare for a kid to go through, though. And yeah, I don't really want to give too much of this away. I will say it is about a little boy, and he was thrust out in the wild from a very young age, very, very young age. And it's either survive or die. And it's what you will do as a person, what your mind will fight and do for you to live. And the worst things in the world, who you are as a human being, having to take that away to become this animalistic kind of person just to survive. It's so heartbreaking. It is so heartbreaking, and yeah, I don't really want to say too much more about it. It's just very heartbreaking. The next book that I read was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, And I have to say, I'm a little disappointed in this one. I gave it 4 stars, but even that, I mean, it was a little boring. Honestly, I think it should probably be a 3-star now that I think about it longer. This story didn't really stay with me too well. The plot twist at the end is definitely notable. Everybody talks about this plot twist, and I get it. I get why everybody talks about it. The plot twist I totally didn't see coming. It was fascinating. It was an awesome plot twist. But the main concept of this book is boring. Like, I really thought, with how much people hyped this book up, I thought it would be more fast-paced and a better story. But honestly, I was just kind of bored throughout this one. The guy's kind of a chauvinistic asshole throughout the entire story. I didn't really like him. I get that you're not really supposed to like him. But it just kind of made an unpleasant reading experience. This book is okay, but I certainly wouldn't say it's a 5-star book. Now, The Silent Patient may have not been a 5-star book, but this next one certainly is. And that is Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. This book is everything. I love this book so much. I read it a month ago, and I am freaking obsessed with this book still. I still think about it. It's so creepy. It's about a girl who had a aunt who went missing in the 80s, and nobody really talked about it in her family. Her mother was like very shut down about the whole situation, and the daughter, she's kind of also known as an outcast, just like her aunt was, and she's just like straight up like, I want to find out what happened to my aunt. And so she goes to the same small town in New York. She ends up working at the same motel as her aunt, working the same shift. And all these creepy things starts happening. Doors opening and shutting on their own, lights coming on and off, images of people that shouldn't be there but are. And she doesn't realize this, but her aunt had the same exact things happening to her at the same motel. And it's all about finding out what happened to her aunt and the disappearance. And this book is just totally fascinating. I adored it. It was scary. It was creepy. I didn't want to read it in the dark. It also had a small, tiny bit of romance. So it was just, this book is perfection. I absolutely adored it, and I cannot recommend it enough. The next book that I read is Lies She Told. This is by Kate Holohan. And honestly, I gave this book 3 stars. I didn't really love it. The reason being that first I saw the twist coming, which I think you're kind of sort of supposed to see coming, but I didn't really like that it was the gay plot twist, because I think that's kind of overused and just not really my favorite thing to happen in a book like this. So basically it is following 2 different plots. The first is that there's a writer, a novelist, and so you're following her novel that she's currently writing, and it is about a guy who is cheating on his wife who has a newborn baby. And the wife in this novel ends up doing something horrific, and you're following that whole plot line. But you're also following the plot line of the novelist in her real life, where she's trying to get pregnant and cannot. And she has a husband whose best friend and law partner just went missing, and you're trying to find out what happened to him and his disappearance. So you've actually got 2 different plots going on all in one book. I love the novel plot of this book because I connected to several of the characters. I did not connect with the novelist herself and her husband. I didn't really like either of their characters, and I just really didn't connect with their story as much. I didn't really care about it. This book was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It just wasn't my personal favorite book. The next book that I have to talk about is going to be The Push. This is by Ashley Audrain. I don't know if I said that right. But anyway, this book has stayed with me. It has creeped me out. I have thought about this for a month afterwards, and I gave it 4 stars, but I'm really thinking maybe it needs to be a 5-star because of how much I think about this book. It's it was hard to read at times, though. It was really hard to read. So this is a very intense study of a specific character. So it is about a girl who's writing a book about her own life, basically. So she's writing down all of these things that's happened in her life. So it goes back from her mother and the way her mother treated her, the way that her grandmother treated her mother, and then about her and her own children. She ends up meeting this guy who's basically perfect. They have this amazing life, and they have this daughter, and she doesn't connect with her daughter. Her daughter is very much so in love with her father, but she has no connection with her mom, doesn't really want to spend any time with her, and she basically hates her own kid. There's no connection there. It's not just postpartum depression. Like, she really, truly doesn't like her daughter. And they end up having a second child, Nicholas, and he's the perfect baby, and she falls in love with him, and they connect, and they have this amazing connection. And something happens to her child, and her child dies. And she truly hates her daughter, though. She hates her, and it causes her marriage to fall apart. It causes all of these things to happen. It's just this big, gigantic study into a character and her, like, what would you do if you truly hated your own child? Or even worse, what if you truly thought your child was evil to their core? Like, you truly believe there wasn't a innocent bone in their body. You truly believe that your child was literally born evil. And this book is a nightmare, but it is fascinating. And the last part of this book, holy crap, it's like a Verity mind-blown ending. Read this book. It's good. Read it. The next book that I read is Blame It on the Tequila. This is by Fiona Cole. I don't know what is happening. I loved Fiona Cole's series, Voyeur, the whole series. I also really liked her earlier books. There's 3 of them in the series. I forgot the name of it. I haven't read the Shame or Shame Me Not series yet, Duet. But I've read both the Blame It on the Tequila, which is the second book, and then I forgot the first book in this series, Blame It on the Champagne. I'm not connecting with either one of them. I gave it 4 stars because it's Fiona Cole, but honestly, it's not, once again, it's not my favorite book by Fiona Cole. It's not one that I would just jump up and recommend. It's okay. It's a second chance romance about a guy who's in this famous band and this girl who was supposed to be in this band. I don't want to give much of it away. I'm just going to say I didn't connect with the characters. I didn't connect with the story. There's just something that's disconnecting me from her writing lately. It's not as hot and juicy as it normally is. It's not as emotionally connected as I normally am to her series, and I don't understand what's happening. But the last like 3 or 4 books that she's written, I just have not felt a connection with. And I'm really, really sad about that because I love this author. She's one of my favorites. But I'm not going to lie and say that I love a book whenever I didn't. I gave it a 4 stars because it's Fiona, but honestly, it probably deserved a 3. I've forgotten a lot of this book, and it just it didn't go where I wanted it to go. I didn't care enough about this girl to feel emotionally connected to her. I just didn't love it. The next book that I read was Dreams of 18 by Saffron A. Kent. This was the first book that I've read by this author, and this book was interesting. It was interesting. It is about a girl who is in love with her best friend's father. Her best friend is a boy who's in love with her, and it's unrequited feelings on her end when it comes to him, but she's totally in love with his dad. And his dad happens to be a coach at the high school. And one day on her 18th birthday, she gets drunk and she kisses him. And her sister, who's a complete bitch, takes a photo of it and spreads it around. And everybody in this small town thinks she's a slut now. And it basically like forces him to quit, and he ends up moving away. She ends up becoming mental, basically, and is forced into a psychiatric hospital for a while. The first half of this book was fan-freaking-tastic. It was so good. The grumpy alpha hole, the whole relationship dynamic between the two, it was kind of like cringy at the first couple of chapters, but then after that, it just became really, really, really freaking good. But around the 50% mark, when they started having sex, it became creepy. It became gross. I'm sorry, but this has some of the cringiest sex scenes I've ever read in a book, ever in my entire life, ever. And I've read a lot of cringy stuff, y'all. I mean, I've read a book that was basically bestiality. And this one was like as bad, if not worse than that. It was just creepy. I don't know. It was cringy. My face during this book was very ugly faces. I was literally cringing. I was literally cringing the whole time I was reading this. And like, it was just nonstop. When they started going at it, it just became that. Like, that was it. And it was just full of, like, there was moments where I'm just like, does this girl not realize that that's going to cause a yeast infection? Like, it was just, yeah. I don't really know what else to say other than that. The first half was perfection. The last half felt like it was written by somebody else. The worst sex scenes I've ever read, ever. Ugh, no. The next book that I read was Baby Maker by P. D'Angelico. I love this author so much. So this one is kind of a rom-com kind of situation. It is also based with a hero who was from Oklahoma, which I love. But he's in New York now. He is a quarterback, or he retired. I don't think he's a quarterback. He played football anyway. And he's retired now. And he does not want to get married, does not want a wife at all, but he does want a child. He wants to have a little boy of his own. And there's a girl who is basically in the same situation, kind of, sort of. She has worked her entire life to stay out of poverty. She's got this amazing career. She's one of the youngest at this career now, and she desperately has decided that she wants to have a baby, but she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to go down that route either. So she is looking for serious candidates only to have a child with. And of course, whenever you have two like people in a romance that just want to have a baby together, of course they're going to do nothing but fall in love. I really loved this one. I think I gave it 5. No, I gave it 4 stars. I love it. I love all of P. D'Angelico's books. This one was the least, like, she normally writes a really grumpy, grouchy, alpha hole kind of character, and this one wasn't. He was just a complete cinnamon roll. He was a complete douche horn dog, but like also a sweet cinnamon roll, and I loved him, and I love this book, and I love the fact that a lot of it was based in Oklahoma, which I never hardly find any books based in Oklahoma, so that was really awesome. And the last book that I read in the month of July is going to be Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This is probably one of his more popular books, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I actually like Sundown Motel better than this one. I think I'm in like the minority there, but this one was okay to me. It just wasn't as good as Sundown Motel in my opinion, but I still really enjoyed it. So it is about a girl who, as a very young child, she lived in this house with her mom and dad. They moved in. It was one of those houses where the price tag was really good. It was almost too good to be true for this kind of big, beautiful, gorgeous, gothic, older house. And 28 days later, after they moved in, They abandoned the house in the middle of the night, left all of their stuff, and just vanished. And so her father ends up writing this book about this haunted house, and it becomes viral. It's like the next like Amityville horror kind of book. And so now it's all these years later, her father has passed away, and she receives her inheritance, and in the inheritance is the actual house. To come to find out, they still had it in their possession this whole time. And she's like, I don't get it. I don't remember any of this happening. I don't think this house is haunted. I think it's all a lie. Why are my parents lying to me? They won't tell me the truth. Like, he took it to his grave. What is actually going on? What's wrong with this house? So she's a renovator of homes, and so she goes down and she decides she's gonna stay in this house by herself in a home that is like supposed to be haunted, and she's gonna renovate it. And a whole bunch of shenanigans ensue. It is really good. Like I said, I personally would recommend Sundown Motel over this one, but I still would highly, highly recommend this one. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a fun, wild ride. Okay, that's it. That's all the books that I read for the month of July. Did you read any of these books? Let me know in the comments below whether you agree or disagree with my opinions of them, and we will talk in the comments below. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will catch you on the next video.